We are, and we're in the middle of learning about slopes. I thought you guys did a real solid job on your quizzes. And because you did such a real solid job on your quizzes, let's go through these. The biggest problem seemed to be with the equation. The equation was a pretty tough question. So we'll go through them step by step and see what we get. What do they want? Okay, so on the first one, here's where the points are located. And here's my line drawn through these points. And I ask, what is the slope of this line? Now, the first thing I have to ask is really straightforward. Is this a positive or a negative slope? Chelsea? Positive, right? Because any slope that goes up, we always read left to right. Any slope that goes up is positive. What's any slope that goes down?
Negative.
Negative. What's a slope that's perfectly straight across the middle?
Zero.
Zero, and that's because zero is between the positives and the negatives. So if I count here, I can look at this in two different ways, and either way I'm going to arrive at the correct solution. Mr. Clark had the game. I could say I'm going to go up 1 over 2. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Remember, slope is the change in the y over the change in the x. Now, some people put down that they thought the answer was a half. Look at your paper. Were you one of those people? It's not a half. The slope is, again, I'm going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So the slope is 2 over 1. Okay. The next question. We have points here, and then here, and then the line drawn through. Oh, I also want to get to one other thing about this first question I almost forgot to mention. Look, I could also have said to go from this point to this point here, I go up 4 over 2. But what do you think 4 over 2 reduces to? 2 over 1. So whether I look, whatever pair of points I use, on a line, I get a constant slope. That is a constant rate of change. The rate of change, if you will, never changes. It's going to be the same all the way through. Yes? Yeah, and then I'm going to have to talk to them about enough for getting you out of this class. They can take you out of another class as far as I'm concerned. Right? No, seriously, we got important stuff to do. You know, it's always been math lately. I don't want to deal with this. Okay, now, to go from here to here on number 2, now, first off, is this a positive or a negative slope? Negative. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now I got to fill it in. Now, it's the change in y first, so I got to go up and down. How much do I go down to get to this? 2. And the negative 2 is a picture of down. Negative meaning down. And then I got to go over how many? 3. So negative 2/3 is the answer to the second slope. Now, Angelina, I noticed that your quiz isn't out, and you struggled with these slope questions, all right? I graded all of the papers. The slope answers were really good through pretty much the whole class. So I think if every person who didn't get a really high grade on the first 4 questions, I think if you just focus on this, I think you're going to be really good in terms of what happens tomorrow. All right, this one goes from here to here to here to here, and that is our third question. Now, again, I'm going to ask this all the time. Is this a positive or a negative slope?
Positive.
Positive. Now, I'm going to go up how many and over how many? Up 1 over 1. So the slope is 1 over 1. Now, if you just put 1, that's fine, because 1 over 1 is 1. Over here, if you just put 2 instead of 2 over 1, that's fine. Now, this guy in the middle, that has to be negative 2/3 because it doesn't reduce. So you have to put it in its fraction form. The last one. Now, what did we just say a minute ago about a line and its slope if that line is perfectly horizontal? It's 0, right? It's right between the negatives and the positive, which is a 0 slope. Now, another way to look at this is to say, if I go from this point to this point, I'm going up 0 over 1. If I go from this point to this point, I'm going up 0 over 4. What does 0 over 1 equal? What's 0 over 1, guys? 0. What's 0 over 4? 0. Anytime we have 0 in the numerator and it's divided by a number other than 0, it's always going to be 0. Okay? So, 2, negative 2/3, 1, and 0. It's extremely important that we be able to identify slope. If we can't identify slope, we can't do any of the remaining work in the chapter. Now, let's go to this equation here. Okay, look, Alan, you're being stubborn to the point where you hurt yourself. Look at your paper. Pick your head up off the desk. Now, if you look at it, you didn't even try to solve it algebraically. Guys, you need to understand.
Too early.
No, stop with the too early stuff. Then learn to not be up all night. Now, here's the deal. We've been over this many, many, many times. I don't expect perfection. I expect direction. If you are still plugging in numbers, seriously, I don't mean to sound harsh, but shame on you. Do you either care that little, or are you that lazy that you say to yourself, despite having done this probably 30 times, I just refuse to learn it? Because that's what it looks like. You know how to distribute. As soon as you see a number outside parentheses, we need to distribute. Angelina, what's 3 times 2x? 6x, good. And what's 3 times negative 5? Now, is there anyone in this room, Alan, you included, Kevin, is there anybody in this room who believes that 3 times 2x is 6x and 3 times negative 5 is negative 15? Is there anybody here who believes they can't even try that? Notice I didn't even say get it right. I just said try it. When we grade questions like this, when I look at them in a quiz, we grade it quickly with what they call a holistic approach. If it's perfect, it gets full credit. If it's completely clueless and plugging in numbers and getting it wrong, Kevin, stop drawing, are completely clueless. And then we're said, is it more right than wrong, or is it more wrong than right? If we look at your question and it's more right than wrong, I'm going to give you 15 out of 20. If I look at it and I say, you know, it's about half right, I'm going to give you 10 out of 20. And if I look at it and say, you know, it's more wrong than right, but they did do something right, I'm going to give you 5 out of 20. All you needed to do was distribute, and you've got 5 points. Then I just add the plus 2x plus 3 equals 20. Now, is this a same side situation or an opposite side situation? Same side. So everybody can recognize that. Now you need to do something about it. Lisbeth, I think on your paper you did a minus 2x here. I think you did. I'm not sure, but I think. Okay? Guys, if it's on the same side of the equal sign, we are not doing the opposite operation. We're doing the same operation. What are 6x's plus 2x's? 8x's. Please, that's not hard. It's a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of the brain. And you guys will walk around and say, oh, I'm stupid, I can't do this stuff. No! You don't do this stuff because you don't want to do this stuff. But if you say to yourself, hey, look, let me give it a shot. And I know, you know, maybe you're doing it because you say to yourself, I'm getting it wrong because I'm dumb. No, you're not. You're truly not. You need to get past that. You need to have some guts, try, and allow yourself to make mistakes, because we all do. There's a little sign hanging in the back of the room about this guy named Ransom. He's a character in a book called Perry Landry. It's a great book. It's a fantastic book. And there's this character in the book who's able to cast perfect judgment. And he says to this character, Ransom, he says that, well, let me see exactly what the wording he used is, because I don't want to mess it up. It says, you are guilty of no evil except a little fearfulness. I never thought of fearfulness as evil. But the more I think about it, the more true it is. Because an evil thing is something that harms you, something that can only hurt you, cannot benefit you in any way, shape, or form. Fear harms you when it's taken to an extreme. When you take fear to the point where you're like, I don't want to do that question because I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong and then I'm going to feel stupid. No. The next part of the quote says, now you're going to go on a journey. And that journey is either going to make you mad, which means crazy in this case, or brave. We can't be fearful as people. I can't be afraid of a knee operation coming up. You can't be afraid of problems that you need to do on a math quiz or a math test. And we're going to keep seeing it over and over and over again. And the journey that we go on, your year in math this year, it's either going to drive you nuts or you're going to learn how to have some guts. So have some guts. 6x's, 2x's on the same side as 8x's. Negative 15 and positive 3 is negative 12 equals 20. Now it's standard two-stepper. This is the point where everybody can do. If I just gave them to you so they look like this. 8x is 32. Divide by 8. X is 4. So that's what my equation should look like. All right. So we've gone over slope today. So if I don't get to too much slope in the course of the lesson, I'm not worried about it. But I am, however, very worried about the do it. This is an extremely important question. Okay? So we're going to go over this step by step and try to figure this out. Now, what it says here is solve for x in the above diagram. And they don't even put graph paper on it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this question. 2 years ago, they started this brand new Common Core Math 8, and I know you've heard all about Common Core. The state didn't give us any resources with which to teach the kids, but they did give us about 12 or 15 sample questions. And boy, oh boy, were those sample questions similar to what was on the test. This was a sample question. So, I didn't see last year's state test. I really don't know what the questions look like. But I do know that because the state puts so many similar questions on the state test, I want to make sure that you've seen what I've seen and that you're comfortable with it. So here is a similar question. Can everybody see, and we've emphasized now, that the slope of this line from A to C is the same all the way throughout, that it doesn't change direction? Can everybody see that? Okay. So does it make sense that the slope from here to here is going to be the same as from here to here, which will be the same as from here to here? Does that make sense for everybody? Right? That angle of the line, the steepness, the slope doesn't change. All right. So if I want to go from A to C, which is here to here, I'm actually going to do this in blue so that you can follow along a little bit easier. If I'm going to go from A to C, what is that slope? Remember, M stands for slope. Does anybody remember why we use an M and not an S? Yeah, it's how you move. Very good. Okay, so look, I'm at the Y is the up and down. Remember, and any coordinate is always X, Y. So here's the Y, and there's the Y. I'm going from 2 to 11. So how many did I go up? Everybody? I went up how many? 9. Good. Now, the X is the over. I'm going from 0 to 6. How many did I go over? 6. Now, can you reduce 9 over 6? What number divides into both 9 and 6? 3. So what would 9 divided by 3 be? 3. And what's 6 divided by 3? 2. So whether I say the slope is 3 over 2 or 9 over 6, the slope is the same. Remember the first quiz question, how I said you could have went up 4 over 2 or up 2 over 1? Well, I could go up 9 over 6 or I could go up 3 over 2. Now, let's do an up 3 over 2 to our starting point here at A. If I go up 3 and over 2, I end up at 3, 4. Does that make sense? Right? I started at 0, and I went up, I'm sorry, I did this backwards, my bad. I go up 3, I started to 2, So if I start at 2 and I go up 3, where do I go to? Start at 2, go up 3. 5. And if I start at 0 and go over 2, what do I end up at? 2. So if I go, what was it? Up 3 over 2, I end up at 2, 5. So here's the point, 2, 5. Now, let's go up 3 again and over 2 again. Ready? If I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, don't I end up at 8? I was at 5 and I went up 3. Do I end up at 8? Okay, now I'm at 2, here's my 2, and I go over 2 more. Where do I end up? I'm at 2, I go over 2 more, where do I end up? 4. So the value of x is 4. Now, let's take that through one more time. This is the beauty of being able to erase the board, and just explain what we're talking about. Okay, so, ready? We found out that the slope was 3 over 2. Remember we did that work. Now, from here, from 0, 2, I'm going to go up 3 over 2. What are the new coordinates? Well, the x is the over, and how many did I go over? This is up, and this is over. How did I go over? 2, up 3, and then I do it again, so I get that x is 4. Okay? Listen, it's all about Dios tonight. Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios, toodaloo. Ta-ta, arrivederci, smile a lot. Ciao, arrivederci, adios amigos y amigas, cheerio, ta-ta, garushurus, another 100. Look at you. Who would have thunk it, huh?